Well, good morning, everyone. Well, as Luke has rightly pointed out, my name is Bart. And also, Luke, top of the class, your descriptions of money mentoring and like our heart to equip the church was spot on. So, if there's a job going anytime soon, are you available for that or no? Okay, cool. It looks like you'll be keeping Luke. He doesn't seem interested. But yeah, so my name's Bart, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And I'm also here with my beautiful wife, Kyra, which is a rare treat for me. Normally, when I come west, I do it alone, but it's much more fun when she's here. So thank you for coming with me. So I work at CAP Australia, so Christians Against Poverty. And as Luke said, we are for many things. So our vision is that in Australia, no one would face financial distress alone. So if you're thinking about who we're for everyone in Australia. And we believe it's through the local church, it's through communities like this one, where people have the best chance of finding a safe and supportive community for whole life transformation and that human flourishing that Luke mentioned earlier. So financial distress has been around for a very long time. And it is a growing issue. In fact, there were 3.4 million households that experienced some form of food insecurity over the 2024 period. So that's a food bank hunger report, so you can go and check that out. But yeah, 3.4 million households experienced some form of food insecurity, and the rising cost of living was one of the main reasons for that. So it's growing, and unfortunately, more and more people are affected by it. So I'll share more about what CAP does a little bit later, including a story that demonstrates how we partner with churches and how churches can connect with their community using the resources and the training from CAP, and also give you some ideas on how you can get involved as an individual and to see that vision of, in Australia, no one facing financial distress alone become a reality, because that's what we're all about. But I do have the privilege of continuing to unpack the Beatitudes with you. So I understand you've already looked at Matthew 5, verses 3 and 4. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And now we'll look at verse 5 together, which says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And as we look at this Beatitude, there's two questions that I kind of want to or two ideas. They're not really questions; they're ideas. Two ideas to kind of look at together. So, one is we're all investing in something, and like I am from a finance organization, but we're not going to give any financial advice this morning. So, everything is when we're saying investing, we're talking much broader than just finance. We're talking our time, so how we invest our time, our talent, how we invest our gifts and our energy, and then also, finance is a part of that as well. So, our treasure. So we're all investing in something. And then number two, trust is greater than worry. Now, I love the Beatitudes. So, because we will never come across a better sermon than the teaching of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus starts this sermon with blessings that are linked to the nature or aspirations of a citizen in the kingdom of heaven, so his kingdom. So each beatitude, and I love this part, is an invitation to be transformed. It's an invitation to think and act differently, to think and act as a citizen in his kingdom. Now, each beatitude, if we're honest with ourselves, actually challenges us to reflect on who we are now and who he is calling us to be, and allow the tension that exists between the two to draw us closer to him and his likeness. So what does Jesus mean when he says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth? So let's start by having a close look at the word meek. Now, I am not a Bible scholar at all, and I do not speak Greek. So I'm going to try and say this word, and if you are trained in that kind of stuff, just forgive me, as the Lord has forgiven, so I shall be forgiven now. So the word meek in Greek is praus. So apologies, praus. And it can be translated as meek or gentle. And it basically means a mildness of disposition or gentleness of spirit. And meekness can get a bad rap these days. It's often confused with weakness, but it's actually far from it. And I've actually heard it said that meekness is strength or power under control. So, what does it mean? What do we mean when we're talking about meekness? So there's a couple of different definitions that we're going to go through here. So gentleness or meekness is the opposite of self-assertiveness or self-interest. It stems from trust in God's goodness and God's control over the situation. It's a James 1 type of trust. Consider it pure joy when you endure trials because God is doing something good in you. And the gentle or meek person is not occupied with self at all. They have a humility. They consider themselves superior to none. They are aware that they themselves have nothing of spiritual or temporal good except what they have received from God. So freely they have received, freely they can give. That's meekness. It's the opposite of self-assertiveness and self-interest. It's a trust in God's goodness and sovereign control, that he is working all things for the good of those who love him. And a Bible commentator called David Guzik says it like this: we can only be meek, willing to control our desire for our rights and our privileges, because we are confident God watches out for us, that he will protect our cause. The promise that they shall inherit the earth proves that God will not allow his meek ones to end up on the short end of the deal. And in ESV Bible study notes, it says, the meek are the gentle, those who do not assert themselves over others in order to further their own agendas in their own strength, but who will nonetheless inherit the earth because they trust in God and to direct the outcome of events. So it's not weakness. And as I think of those definitions, another passage from the Sermon on the Mount comes to mind. And if you'd like this morning, you can imagine the scene. So it was a large audience gathering on a hillside with spectacular views across the blue water of Lake Galilee. So it sounds wonderful, right? Almost as good as what we see out here with the trees blowing in the wind. By the way, Kyra and I went and watched the sunset over the water last night. Do you guys ever get sick of that? Like seeing, no, I didn't think so. It's pretty special, right? So we've got this large crowd near Lake Galilee. There's lots of people listening, and although in many ways they're actually quite similar to us today, there are lots of similarities. Like they are wrestling with things just like us. They're working people. They needed to provide for themselves, for their families, and for many their future was uncertain. They had things on their minds. They had worries. They had anxieties. Some of them even drifted off thinking about these worries and anxieties while Jesus was speaking, which I know won't happen this morning because you guys are all way too attentive for that. Not that I'm a better communicator than Jesus, because that's just not true. So Jesus calls them. So in this passage, Jesus calls them not to a slight adjustment, to some small tweaks in their behavior, but he calls them to make a decisive break in their mindset. He calls them to stop living the way they are. Jesus calls them to a meekness that trusts God in all circumstances, a humility that knows God is in control. So he says this in Matthew 6, verses 24 to 34. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So that's Matthew 6, 24 to 34. So just like the people listening to Jesus on that day, we have worries. If I were to ask for hands, I'm pretty sure we'd all put our hands up, but I'm not going to do that. We have challenges we're walking through. The invitation of Jesus is to lean into him, to seek his kingdom first. So remembering that the meek are those who do not assert themselves over others in order to further their own agendas, but who nonetheless will inherit the earth because they trust in God to direct the outcomes. It's not weakness, but an assurance that God is in control. Let's consider that first point. We are all investing in something. We invest time and money into family, education, jobs, homes, retirement. The list goes on and on. But what are the returns we're looking to see? When are we hoping they will be realized? We invest in an effort to live the good life, whatever that is. We have our agenda. We have things we're striving to achieve in our own strength. And Jesus does teach us to invest. However, he completely flips the script on what a good return looks like. We see in Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So Jesus is saying to his audience, there is something his listeners need to stop doing. And the phrasing is imperative. Stop storing up treasure on earth. Stop putting all your energy into money and possessions in this life. Jesus says it's time to change because your investment won't last. But he's also saying there's something we need to start doing. We need to start storing up treasures in heaven. Jesus, he's not saying that we don't need to think about how we invest our time or money or talents. Absolutely, we should. It would be unwise not to, right? But we do need to think of where we invest our time, our finance, our energy, our talents, if we want it to last and if we want it to be a return that matters. Now, I have two sons. They're between the ages of 10 and 12. My youngest, Austin, so he's 14 now, but between 10 and 12, he would often grow quite attached to very random things. And we used to have a lot of fire pits in the backyard, and he would collect sticks with his older brother. They were good gatherers. And one time he found a stick that he took an instant liking to. It was a good length, so he could use it as a walking stick. So let the good times commence, and let the many Gandalf impressions also commence. And as I was adding wood to the fire, if I so much as looked at that stick, he would very quickly let me know it wasn't for burning. Now, I can be forgetful, so it happened a few times that night. To him, this stick was one of a kind. Only one tree in history had ever created anything like it, and no tree in the future could possibly match the magnificence of this branch. So, question for the crowd, where is this stick now? It's burned. And no, it wasn't me on the night. That's an important detail. It ended up lasting, I think, close to a year. I can't actually remember, but he's grown fond to other sticks now. So he's moved on. Another tree created a better one. So sometimes something is of value purely because we perceive it to be. So my son, Austin, didn't realize his investment was pointless. And I think in some ways Jesus was looking out on his audience like I did when I saw that stick. And he sees us putting so much energy and focus into something that has no real long-term value. That we can be so preoccupied, but with something so short-term. So he calls us to stop trying to assert ourselves, to further our own agendas in our own strength, and invites us into something so much bigger. He invites us and that audience to trust in God and seek his kingdom first. He invites them to meekness, not weakness, meekness, but a strength to trust in God in every season. And this to our second point, trust is greater than worry. So we saw in verses 25 to 34, where Jesus was addressing worry, he looks out and sees people prone to worry, and he gives two metaphors, there's birds and flowers. Birds are well fed, flowers are beautifully dressed, yet they don't worry. It's God's desire for us to live this way, to live worry-free in relation to money and possessions, which sounds amazing. And I don't know about you, but I struggle with that. It's pretty hard to live worry-free in relation to money and possessions. So how do we do this? And Jesus gives us an answer in verse 33 and 34. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So Jesus tells us to seek first his kingdom and know that God sees our need and is able to meet each and every one of them. So nobody wants to worry. Our strategy for not worrying is to get a little bit more. If I had just a little bit more, I'd be fine. Most people say if they had an extra 10%, they would be fine. But money doesn't work like that. We tend to get more and then we need more again. It just keeps going. A far scarier approach than to look for more is to actually say, I'm going to trust God. Whatever is in my bank account, whatever possessions I have, plenty or little, I will trust God. And as scary as that is, I actually think it's the only path to a genuinely worry-free life. Generosity, just a slight tangent here, but generosity is such an important component of that teaching. It helps us to find genuine satisfaction in God. So rather than believing our happiness comes from stuff, every dollar we give is a step of faith and a choice to trust God. Every time we give of our time and energy to show the love of Jesus to another person is a step of faith and a choice to trust in God. And coming back to our verse today, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. As we choose to trust God, not seeking our own rights, privileges, and desires, but trusting that He knows what we need and is more than able to provide, we are free to look outward to the needs of others and consider how we can show the love of God to people all around us. So generosity, it is a heart posture. It's not just about money. And to demonstrate this, I said I'd share a little bit more about what CAP does, but I want to share a story with you. And I want to introduce you to a lady named Jade. Perfect timing, well done. So Jade is someone who had a job. She had a home. I'm sure she had a phone as well. She had a home and a family in Sydney. And Jade, unfortunately, and sadly experienced domestic violence and made the difficult decision to leave that relationship. And it meant leaving everything behind: her home, her job, her support network. Jade and her 2 kids moved into a refuge without a dollar. She came into contact with a church that partners with CAP. And they did help her to get her finances in order, but they did so much more than that. Now, this church actually had a care wing, and part of that care wing was able to actually give her a car, which is pretty incredible, right? And she eventually got a job working at their community cafe. So it wasn't just practical support. Jade has actually shared of the emotional impact of financial distress on her. She felt alone, she felt unseen, she felt uncared for. And as she came into contact with the church, with God's church, she felt seen, she felt heard, and she felt valued. And these days, and this is just such a beautiful image of transformation, these days Jade manages the church cafe. And she loves Jesus and is so passionate about everyone having the chance to start a relationship with Him. She makes sure to smile and say hello to everyone who enters the cafe. Because as she says, you never know what's happening behind the scenes in someone's life. So a simple smile and a hello means that someone is seen, that someone is valued. And this kind of transformation is only possible through generous communities loving others. So generosity is not just about finance. It's a heart posture that moves us toward others in a whole range of ways. For many people, although finance is a problem, it's actually a presenting issue, and loneliness is at the heart. So we need generous church communities that can come alongside others. And honestly, making time is a huge challenge we all face. But if we want to become generous communities focused on sharing the love of Jesus with others, we have to find ways around that. So I've got 2 questions for us to consider this morning. The first is there anything God is prompting you to leave behind? Is there a stick you're clinging to that needs to go into the fire and be burned? Is there something you need to leave behind? And is there anything God is asking you to invest in? And it might be financially, it might be investing your time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very introverted. So Love speaking to large crowds. I'm very introverted, so time away from people is how I recharge. But at times, I give myself too much alone time. So, an investment for me could be to sacrifice some of that alone time to invite people to dinner. My wife's great at helping me do that, so thank you, Kyra. And to reach out to my neighbor and see if there's anything I can help with. God gave me time. I can invest that time to show the love of Jesus to those around me, and you can too. So, what is it God's asking you to start investing in? So, as with any sacrifice, worry can be an obstacle to following through. So, what does Jesus say? Back to Matthew 5, verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Seek first his kingdom, and we can trust him to provide as we work to see his kingdom come and his will be done. So I believe as Jesus looked out at this crowd during the Sermon on the Mount, he saw a group of people who were worried and anxious. They were thinking short term and largely focused on their own needs. They weren't living in a place of trust. They didn't see him as generous, so they carried the burden for provision themselves. And consequently, they were narrowly focusing on the immediate. And Jesus called them to stop. He called them to look to him for provision and invest into something so much greater for a return that matters. And I wonder what Jesus would say to us today. I wonder what he would say to you and to me. And I genuinely believe that if Jesus were here now, he would also say, stop. He would invite us to become meek, to trust him and watch how he cares for us. He would give us an invitation to invest for a return that matters. And I mentioned earlier that we're all investing in something, whether it be with our time, our talent, or our treasure. And are you happy with your investments? Again, we're not talking strictly finance here. No financial advice given. Today, I'd like you all to I'd like to invite you all, let's get this sentence right. I'd like to invite you all to join a movement of Christ followers that are committed to investing together so that no one faces financial distress alone. And this investment might look different for each of us. For some, it might actually be financial. For others, it might be opening your home in hospitality. And for some, it might be training, as Luke mentioned earlier, as a money mentor and joining that cohort in May so that you can pick up skills and resources so that you can confidently walk alongside people experiencing financial distress. There are many ways that we can invest in seeing the vision of no one in Australia facing financial distress alone become a reality. And this vision would see a movement of people who with generous hearts, committed to investing so the lives of others may be transformed. A vision that sees supported church communities that are able to build authentic relationships with others. A vision that sees local churches responsive to the needs of their communities and equipped to support people facing the challenges of our time, which is financial distress and isolation. So today I'd like to invite you to invest in what we call good yields. So it's good because together we are doing something good. We are serving God's kingdom. We are joining Jesus in flipping the script on what a good investment looks like, and yields because together we are saying, Jesus, you are enough. I trust you for my own provision. I yield, I sacrifice, I give over control. And together we look forward to yielding good returns in the lives of the people who need it most. So good yields is about three things. It's about reflection. It's about reflecting on how you can love those experiencing financial hardship, to consider how you are demonstrating the compassion of Christ toward others. It's about making a commitment to be part of the difference, to stop and make time for others as Jesus did. And perhaps there is one thing you can do to support others. Invite a friend over for a meal, start praying for someone you know is in need, or even train as a money mentor. So please do come and talk to me if you're interested in that. But it could also be about investing financially and investing into a movement of churches that is looking to see change across our nation. So by giving monthly to CAP, your gift means we can partner with more churches across the nation. That was someone calling to say they're investing now. We can equip them to become beacons of hope in their communities so we can see more lives transformed. And on average, people sign up around $50 a month, but the amount really is up to you. There's no pressure from me, that's for sure. When you invest in good deals today, in exchange, I'll give you a packet of seeds. So these are sunflower seeds. And I'd invite you to plant them somewhere in your garden. And as you watch that sunflower grow, I invite you to also pray for the countless people in Australia who are facing financial distress, or maybe even someone personally who is facing that. So on the cards, somewhere on your seats, you'll notice it's got a little QR code. So normally, we discourage the phones being out because they distract you and all that kind of stuff. But feel free to get your phones out. You can scan the QR code. There's some on the seats there. There's also some on the screen. So you're welcome to scan that and have a look at it. There is a short form to fill in, and if you want to fill it in, go for it. If you'd like to talk to me before you do anything, please do come and speak with me. But there's absolutely no pressure. But yeah, so as you're considering that, I just want to again invite you to consider three things, just a helpful framework that I have recently come across when it comes to considering what God's asking me to put down and what God's asking me to invest into. And the first one is to look up. So to seek first his kingdom, to look to God and trust that he is in control and is able to give you all you need. And then look in. What time has God given me? What talents has God given me? And what treasure has God given me that I can then look out and leverage my time and talent and my treasure for the good of those around me? And as you consider all those things, just remember that Jesus is with you until the very end of the age. He's not asking you to do something he's never done. He lived a life where he did these very things, where he looked to God, got all he needed from his spirit, and then looked to the needs around him. And we're all here today because he chose to invest in us.